Coldwell Banker friends and family. It's Danielle Tucker Shepherd, and I am coming to you to talk to you about the contract. So, I think we're going to do this in a multi part class session, but today we're going to talk about certain parts of the contract and kind of going over what you need to emphasize with your buyers and sellers. So, looking at the 1 to 4 residential contract. So we are going to start with page 1, and we're going to look at section 2B. These are improvements. So these are everything that comes with the house. These are permanently installed and built-in items that come with the house. So some of the things are really simple, but here lately, we've had a shift in what people understand as built-in or not. The biggest thing is we have a lot of sellers that'll be like, oh, I've got a flat screen TV hanging on the wall. I'm going to take that TV down. That is fine. You can take your TV down. But what you cannot do is remove the TV mount and brackets from the wall. Those are considered built-in items. And it is written right there in the 1 to 4 contract. So make sure your seller understands that, okay, that cannot be removed. Additionally, speakers cannot be removed. So if you have somebody that's got the surround sound speaker system and they're like, oh my gosh, I just totally love it and I'm going to take it, get it done before that house is listed and before you get a contract on it. The other thing that has been a wild bone of contention here lately is water softening systems. A lot of houses have them. Some of them are leased, some of them are purchased. That's not what we need to worry about right now. What we need to worry about is whether or not they convey. So if you go into a house and there's a water softening system in there, understand that that system stays with the house unless they write it into 2D, which 2D is exclusions. Okay, let's talk about 2C. These are accessories that also come with the house. So accessories that also come with the house, a lot of times that people try to take is their fireplace screens. And it doesn't say built-in fireplace screens. It just says fireplace screens. You also have curtains, rods, blinds, window shades, drapery, and rods. Okay? Those are all things that when you walk into a house, if they're there, then they're staying there unless somebody puts it under exclusions. Now, you need to make sure that when you have the buyer, that those things are not excluded. And sometimes you need to explain to agents, please let your seller know that those drapes and curtains and whatever else is staying with the house. Exclusions need to be notated. So sometimes when you're a buyer and you're writing the contract, at the very bottom in the MLS agent to agent remark, it will say draperies not included, curtains not included, okay, or whatever. Make sure if you're the buyer's agent, you put that in that exclusions box. Also, when you get a counter back, make sure you check that exclusions box that they haven't snuck something in there. Because the last thing you want is your buyer to be expecting a water softening system that's not there anymore. Okay, so make sure. So that's the first thing we wanted to talk about. The next thing that we're going to talk about is paragraph 7D, acceptance of the property condition. Okay, notice that you always take property condition as is. It's as is. Okay, you can do as is and that's it and you're not going to ask for anything, or you do as is as long as the seller does this. Okay, so and that's 7D2. Okay, so when you ask for the house to be professionally cleaned, that goes under 7D2. When you ask the lawn to be maintained until closing, 7D2. When you ask for the carpets to be professionally cleaned, 7D2. These are not things that you put under special provisions because there is a place for them in the contract, because you will not accept the house unless these things are done. Okay? Also, important to note when you have a buyer or a seller is to say, Yes, they're asking for these things right now, but that does not mean that after they have the inspection, they cannot ask for additional repairs. Okay? So just because you're asking for it now does not mean you cannot ask for it later. Okay? So then that brings us into doing the repairs. Okay? Lender required repairs is 7E. The important thing about 7E is that lender required repairs are negotiable. If you tell your seller, well, you can't, if you don't do these repairs, you can't sell the house. Well, kind of true, but that just means you can't sell the house to that person unless they want to do the repairs. Okay? So repairs are negotiable. And it is becoming more and more that we're negotiating some of these lender required repairs, especially on FHA loans when they ask for ridiculous stuff. So make sure that your seller and your buyer understand that these are negotiable repairs. Now, once the repairs have been, once you've negotiated, that's one of those paragraphs that can get your client opted out of the contract to where they can get their earnest money back. They can terminate. So if you negotiate repairs and you can't agree on it, then your buyer can terminate and get the earnest money back. The seller can't terminate, but the buyer can terminate and get their earnest money back. The buyer can also terminate, like the whole entire contract can terminate. But the buyer can also terminate if the repairs to the house are more than 5% of the sales price. So, based on your sales price, more than 5% is however much. Okay. But, so that's another way that you can, and then the buyer would get their earnest money back. Now, 7F has been a bone of contention over the past several years. 7F talks about completion of repairs and treatment. Okay, so you have an electrical system that you have asked for repairs on. Let me start back with this. A seller cannot do their own repairs unless they are licensed or commercially working in a handyman, contractor, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, unless they're licensed, and they cannot do their own repairs. Sellers want to do their own repairs because it's going to save them money, but they cannot do their own repairs. So if you have a seller that says, I want to do my own repairs, you better put it in writing in that amendment that the seller is going to do their own repairs, because that has to be agreed upon by everybody. Because in the contract, it specifically states any repair to be done is to be done by someone either licensed. Okay, so let's talk about license. HVAC, electrical, plumbing, license. Or someone who is commercially engaged in the practice of that trade. Chimney sweeps, roofing, flooring, everything else. You've got to find somebody who's commercially engaged in that form of business. Okay? So make sure when you're a listed or when you're a buyer's agent and you've sent out that repair amendment, that you get that information back, that the receipts are from people licensed. If they are not, do not be afraid to call that agent and say, hey, I know that you have this handyman and I know that he did your electrical update for this switch in the attic. However, I either need his license number or I need an electrician to go back and do that, because that's what's agreed upon. Okay. So make sure you understand that part, that they have to be commercially engaged in that business. Okay. Now, a lot of times buyers are like freaking out, going, well, we're closing in 2 days and they don't have all the repairs done. Please note that repairs need to be finished before closing. However, the closing can be extended up to 5 days for the completion of such repairs. So that is also in the contract. It specifically states it right there in 7F. All right, we're going to flip over to paragraph 11, which is special provisions. Special provisions is a place where you can write actual factual statements that deal with this contract. Okay, factual business details. Okay, so let's look at that. What does that look like? Because I know there are some brokers that say you don't put anything in that. If you put something in that, then you're practicing law. No, that is a mistake. That is not what this says. It specifically says factual statements and business details for the sale. Now, if there is another form, if there is another TREC promulgated form that would address what you're putting in there, then it's a problem. You always want to make sure that there's not a TREC form. But if there's not a TREC form, for a lot of things there's not, then you need to make sure that you put things in special provisions. Things in special provisions can be anything from a legal description that will not fit in block 2A, where we put the legal description, then you can put it in special provisions. It could be that the seller is not going to pay any additional commission or buyer's agency's fees other than the agreed upon 3% or 2% or 1% or whatever commission percentage. It could be that the seller does not want to pay discount points, loan origination fees, VA funding fee, whatever. Anything that is a factual statement based on what your seller's needs are or your buyer's needs are, you put in that blank. Do not put repair requests. There's another place in the contract for that. Do not put cleaning, lawn mowing, anything like that, because there's another place in the contract for that that we just talked about. So make sure that in special provisions, do not be afraid to use that section. You are not practicing law. You are simply putting down your buyer's or seller's wishes based on factual statements that pertain to the sale. Okay. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is paragraph 23, which is your termination period. Let me start with this. Time is of the essence. Time is of the essence. That means you got to take care of that ASAP, no matter weekend, no matter holiday. 3 days. Okay? From the time that you go under contract with your effective date, your execution date, you have 3 days to either give the seller the option money or give the listing agent the option money or the listing broker the option money. If you cannot do that within those 3 days, you do not have an option period. Period. Does not happen. So you need to make sure that you get that to them and do not take another agent's word for it that they're gonna, oh yeah, it's no problem. You can go ahead. I know they're sending it from Canada or wherever, and my seller is still gonna accept it. No, not happening. Those contract states 3 days. It does not matter if your person is coming from Canada. If you have to pay that option fee yourself and have them pay you back, fine. But you better have that option money in within 3 days. So, 3 days of the effective date. If you decide to terminate, well, let's talk about effective date because I know some people get confused. So, let's say the effective date is October 1st. You've executed a contract for October 1st. It starts day 2. So, you have the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th to get that option money to them. Okay? 3 days, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Now, for the termination, the second part of this. You have until the X amount of days that you asked for in the contract to terminate by 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. I don't care if your sellers are 9 hours or your buyers are 9 hours behind us. It is 5 p.m. Central Standard Time that you have to give the official signed TREC notice of the buyer's termination of contract. Do not think for 1 second that a listing agent is not going to be like 718. They don't have that contract termination to me. We are out of option. Because guess what? 718, you're out of option. So make sure if there is a chance you're going to terminate that contract, that you have it signed well before 5 p.m. to where you can get it to the listing agent by 5 p.m. on that last day. If you think that, well, you know what, we're in the middle of negotiations and we're going to work this out and blah, 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 you better make sure that you extend the option period. Make sure you ask for remuneration, money. You have to ask for money to extend the option period, but you do have that option. Ask for the option period to extend. Simply because don't sit there and think, well, we'll work this out, and then you don't. And that's a problem. So that's our contracts class for today. Um, we will, of course, the class is going to be live tomorrow, but just in case anybody missed it, I wanted them to have the information that we went over. Any questions, always, always feel free to call. Feel free to text me, call me. I'm always here. Talk to y'all soon.